This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
It was a chilly autumn evening, and my husband and I had been going through a really tough time, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to make tonight special. And I had the kids off with, at a friend's house, and I thought I'm going to make a nice dinner. And it was a meal that I knew my husband loved. So I set the table. I had, candles in the room flickering, just trying to create a warm, peaceful atmosphere. I wanted everything to be perfect, hoping that it could just maybe bring us closer after the tension that we had been experiencing. When he walked in the room, I greeted him with a smile and said, "Hey, hon, dinner's ready." He glanced at me briefly, his expression completely blank, and he sat down at the table without a word. No, "Oh, great, I'm hungry," or "Hey, thanks, it looks good." Even some form of acknowledgement. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. But no, the silence was deafening. Why does he not engage in conversation, in a greeting, in life? I got nothing. Just pounding silence. So I sat down and I tried to start conversation, asking about his day, how was work going? But his responses were short, monotone, clipped, his eyes fixed on his plate, as if I didn't even exist. Then came the sighing, that heavy, deliberate exhale. The one that's, just not quite loud enough to accuse him of sighing, but just enough to let me know that something was off. Somehow, there was disappointment. The meal wasn't good enough. My greeting wasn't satisfactory. Something I've said has upset him. What was it? I could feel my chest tighten and my stomach sink. What had I done wrong this time? What was it? Was it the food? Too hot? Too cold? Something I said? Too loud? Too quiet? Was it the chair? Too hard? Too soft? Just right? I racked my brain for answers, but his nonverbal cues left me in the dark, drowning in self-doubt and overwhelmed with this fix-it mode that we find ourselves in so often. Still, he said nothing. So we ate, and I continued trying to have conversation. Well, then I would start noticing the subtle shake of his head. Barely perceptible, but enough to send the message that whatever I was saying was wrong or not worthy of his attention. When I mentioned a small success that I had had during the day, he raised an eyebrow and gave a tight-lipped smirk, the kind that feels more like a scoff than encouragement. I wanted so badly to ask him what was wrong, but that was such a dangerous question, and his posture, leaning back in his chair now with his arms crossed, his body angled slightly away from me, his posture screamed, "Don't you dare ask, don't bother," or even, "You're not worthy of my time and attention." By the end of dinner, I had barely touched my food. My appetite was lost in this swirl of anxiety, and I tried to make light conversation one last time. I asked if he'd like to watch a movie together. He didn't answer immediately. No, sure, that sounds like a good idea. Or what movie do you have in mind? Or even, no thanks, not tonight. I'm really tired. No, nothing. Silence. The deafening silence hung in the air. So my mind spun in circles yet again. Should I have asked? Did he hear me? Should I say it again? Should I start offering movie titles? On and on my mind spun. After this long, pregnant pause, he muttered, "We'll see," while staring at his phone. That simple phrase, paired with the dismissive wave of his hand, shut down any hope I had for connection that evening. After dinner, as I cleaned up, he walked past me without a word, not even glancing in my direction. No, thanks for dinner, or that was good, or I'll see you in a little bit. Total silence. I heard the faint sound of the TV turning on in the other room, and he had not asked if I wanted to join him. He had not engaged in any sort of communication with me. The unspoken message came through clear. You are not worth my time. Whether he meant to communicate this or not does not matter. It is what was communicated. You see, nonverbal communication matters. That night, I laid awake in bed, replaying the evening, analyzing everything, every subtle gesture, every flicker of expression, every word, every sigh, everything. His words had been sparse, but his body language spoke volumes. Volumes of disapproval, detachment, disdain. It wasn't just what he didn't say. It was the absence of warmth, the rejection in his averted glance, the walls that were built with his silence. Now, this was not an isolated incident. This was frequent. There were frequent eye rolls when I tried to share something personal. There were frequent dismissive shrugs when I sought his opinion. The way he'd suddenly walk away in mid-conversation, as though I wasn't even worth finishing the sentence. Even in public, his nonverbal communication was a weapon, correcting me with his eyes if I said something he didn't like. But no one else saw it, silencing me with his invisible stare. But I knew I was going to pay for it when we got in the car. He'd smile and act engaged with others, but the second we were alone, that stopped. His face would become stone cold, his posture rigid, and his tone dripping with anger and disdain. It's a kind of pain that words cannot explain, the kind that leaves you questioning yourself, doubting yourself, and blaming yourself. That's the silent weapon of nonverbal communication in the hands of a covert narcissist, and it hurts more than people can possibly imagine. Nonverbal communication lays a foundation in a relationship. It goes beyond the words, and it conveys emotions. So nonverbal cues can communicate care and empathy. This often involves, warmth and attentiveness, a sense of connection. These are things like a soft smile, a pleasant gleam in the eye, an engaged presence, a relaxed face, a concerned expression that matches the conversation, a subtle nod, even sounds like uh-huh and These communicate. These, especially when they're, appropriately fitting in the conversation. Looking at a person, facing them with your body, gently leaning in, uncrossing your arms, matching their level, sitting if they're seated, bending over if they're seated and you're standing, leaning in close, but respecting their space, not invasive. Maybe a volume level that matches the environment, speaking quietly, calmly, if it's a distressing moment. Even avoiding distractions, such as your phone, showing that you're fully present, remaining physically still and not fidgety. All of these things express your care and empathy. And this is communicated so effectively through your presence, your warmth, and your attentiveness. It gives a safe and supportive environment to the people around you. These things build trust. They create this, like I said, sense of connection. But that's not what you find with a covert narcissist. They might do some of these things.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
But here's the difference. It's a learned behavior, not a genuine. So it feels off. Their comes at a weird spot in the conversation. It's forced, not natural. Their warm eye burns a hole through your head. It's more like a stare. Their avoidance of distraction is a big show of putting their phone away and grandly devoting all of their attention to you. Because these are learned behaviors, not genuine. It's driven by their desire to show you that they care rather than actually caring for you. There's a big difference there. Their focus is still on themselves. Did I care enough? Do they see that I care? Aren't I a caring person? Nothing to actually do with you, which is why it feels so wrong. I want to talk through what the nonverbal cues of a covert narcissist feel like. You see, these are cues of arrogance and entitlement because that's what's going on inside of them. Look at the nonverbal cues. They are there. Facial expressions, smirking, shrugging, eye rolling, lip curling, lip pursing, raised eyebrows, narrowed eyes. All of this portrays arrogance, superiority, condescension, judgment, criticism. How about their body language? Their head tilted back and their nose up in the air. An exaggerated posture, standing overly tall, puffing out their chest. Hands on their hips or arms crossed in defensiveness. Making a show of doing something as a way of mocking you. These slow, deliberate gestures and moves. All of this to show, again, their superiority, their dominance over you. How about their eye contact? It's staring. It's, prolonged and intense staring that's to intimidate you or dominate you, or a refusal to look at you, dismissing you. Waving a hand dismissively as a way of brushing you off. How about with their speech? Slow, drawn out, exaggerated speech as though you're too dumb to understand what they're saying. Talking over you or right through you. Exaggerated sighs and scoffs. Mocking and sarcastic tones. Deliberate pauses, holding this long silence. All of these are common tools of the covert narcissist. And how about the behavioral signs? Taking up space, spreading out their belongings, sitting in a way that dominates the area. Ignoring other people's presence, turning their bodies away from them as though you're not worthy of their attention. Over-the-top gesturing, which I've already talked about. Even walking ahead of you. I hear that from a lot of people. Yes, they walk ahead of you, not beside you, because you are beneath them. Now, their words might not match their nonverbal cues. In talking about covert narcissism, we often talk about the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They behave one way in public, but the complete opposite behind closed doors. Okay, that is true. But their Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde actually goes beyond that. Their words say one thing, but their nonverbal communication says the complete opposite. They might tell you all the right things. I love you. You're the only one for me. You're more important than anything to me. I would do anything for you. But their nonverbal communication? No, it doesn't communicate any of that. In fact, it leaves you feeling unheard, unseen, unimportant. They say I love you, but they dismiss you with a wave of their hand or an exaggerated sigh. They say that they value you, but they talk right through you or walk off while you're in mid-sentence. This is what lays the deepest foundation of cognitive dissonance. You want to believe them. They're saying the right words. You feel like you should believe them, and then you can't figure out why you don't believe them. What's wrong with me that I feel this way? They say that they love me. They say that they care about me. So what's wrong with me? My feelings must be broken. I mean, what are you going to accuse? That he crosses his arms when he talks to you? Or that she raises her eyebrows at you? Or that he walks ahead of me all the time? These things sound petty. And we feel crazy when we try to talk about the nonverbal cues. Well, I am here to tell you that you are not petty and you are not crazy. Nonverbal communication says more about a person than the words that come out of their mouth. You feel the way you feel for a reason. Nonverbal communication matters. Listen to it. Listen to your feelings. Start paying attention. Watch your environment. See how they're treating you, not just listening to the words. Look past that. If this episode resonated with you, please reach out to me for help to make sense of the specifics of your situation. It is so hard to work through the cognitive dissonance on your own. And this cognitive dissonance, this goes deep. But there are tools, there are ways to get through this and make sense out of it. You need someone who gets it. So find that support, someone who has lived it. You can find me at covertnarcissism.com. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime. You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.